A couple of updates to Tower Defense Simulator. The first one being that the merch store that the developers were talking about in the update log and actually did appear in the store, well, not the store, sorry, the lobby here with like a big virtual item and a big shop now, it's been removed. And the thing is, the developers removed it because the Roblox API actually broke. As mentioned by Out of Bears here, as he states here, it says, by the way, for now, I've gone ahead and disabled the merge stop as Roblox's API returns an unauthorized error when attempting to item info. Once they fix that on their end, we can go ahead and re-enable the shop. It did not do this elsewhere. I'm assuming this was during testing, which makes sense, and you know, is probably the reason why the plushies feature so prominently on the Black Friday sale. They did plan to have this out for Black Friday, but because of Roblox's issues, the developers have not been able to add this, and somebody did check out underneath the lobby whether or not it was being moved down here just in case, but it seemingly has been totally removed. Interestingly enough though, the statues still remain underneath the lobby, as you can see here, and below that is the crate opening section, which is still where crates are opened. I assume the developers are pissed off as much as we are, because this is during the Black Friday sale where I assume a lot of the developers' profits are being made, and for it not to appear during a large sale is probably going to hurt Tower Defense Simulator quite a fair bit. I'm not sure if Tower Defense Simulator or Paradoxian Games can sue Roblox for returning API errors for their game. However, there's been a lot of criticism for the developers for these thumbnails, because on this thumbnail it suggests with the percentage tag on the premium crates here that the premium tags will go on sale for the Black Friday sale. But that's not the case. These crates here are not on sale. I've also seen a thumbnail or icon that has the deluxe crate with a tag suggesting that will be on sale, but it's not the case, and many people have criticized the developers for having a thumbnail which has the premium and deluxe crates on sale. I think that's okay, it's maybe false advertising, but it's barely... I don't think that's the greatest injustice that Tower Defense Simulator has done. And considering that many other things are on sale, and in fact a lot of the towers are on sale, I think that this is fine for the most part, that the crates aren't on sale. In fact, I think that the crates have rarely ever been on sale in Tower Defense Simulator. They may have been on sale once, but after that I don't think they've ever been on sale. In addition to the merch store being removed from the game, by the way, the Mentin has also pointed out the fact that there are actually sometimes options when the merch store did appear for some players, saying that sometimes they were completely broken, as was the case for me. I never got a message with the merch shop open, except for the merch shop appearing for a brief split second where you're stuck on an endless loading screen. That didn't happen to me, but I did see the loading screen. And some people also got an error suggesting that the items for the merch shop was actually missing. Out of Bears also fixed the game because the game broke actually when v1.81.0 was released. It was fixed, I think, in like v1.81.0a or something like that. But he also suggests that the new map, has a new difficulty. I believe it is medium, and despite the name, medium actually is harder than easy, but easier than normal. I would have thought medium would have been harder than normal, but easier than hard. So there are now actually, I think, 6 difficulties in Tower Defense Simulator, 7 if you include events. So if you go into the supercomputer and select medium, there is only one medium map, that being Midnight Issue. When you select easy, it doesn't actually show up the very easy map, but it does show it up when you select community. So Honey Valley, there is very easy, medium, normal, hard, and insane. That is 6 difficulties, and 7 if you include the event difficulty, which is applied to event maps. The difficulty for Midnight Issue actually changed from normal to medium, and it now appears in matchmaking, as you just saw. It is the first medium map to be added to Tower Defense Simulator. Now, I assume it's been added because of a thing that's been posted on the Trello, the map difficulty reward scaling. So map rewards will scale with map difficulty. It looks like the developers have added a new difficulty, that being medium, so that there are now 6 categories for which rewards can be placed. So that's very easy, medium, normal, hard, and insane. This means that there's going to be a 6-tiered approach when it comes to difficulties in maps, and therefore rewards in maps once this map difficulty scaling rewards is added to Tower Defense Simulator. I also assume that once this map difficulty scaling thing is added to Tower Defense Simulator, a lot of the maps are going to change their difficulty. Some maps will probably be demoted to medium, which is easier than normal, and some maps may be rejigged around so that they're no longer easy, they may be medium, and like maybe some insane maps go to hard and some hard maps go to insane. We'll just see some things go around basically. In addition to this, the developers have now blocked off the event area, as you can see here. The binary still comes out of the door, as you can see here. It seems like it's an effect that the developers have made, but they've now locked off the event area, and event elevators, or the event matchmaking statue, has now been fully removed from Tower Defense Simulator. But you can still get the Battle Pass. The Battle Pass is related to the Battle Pass. The Battle Pass isn't related to the event at all. That is something completely different. The event normally doesn't line up with the Battle Pass, although the original plan was the Battle Pass would align with the event. But the Battle Pass has been extended for a week, hence why the event has now ended before the Battle Pass. However, with that being said, you can actually enter through the portal if you were to backflip through the door, and you can actually still trigger the live part of like the event 1, as you can see here. Go to the matchmaking, go here, choose solo, and yeah, you still are unable to actually do any of the matchmaking for night 1. You can't even trigger night 2 here, as you can see. It says play night 1 to unlock. Yeah, you can't do that. So the event area itself has not been removed, it's just that it's very hard to actually now access it unless you were to do the comeback emote to this part of the door, as you can see here. In fact, you don't even need to do the full comeback emote. All you need to do is do the comeback, start the comeback emote, and then scroll into your character, and then you just get teleported through the door. Now, it's unsure actually on what amount of hardcore gems the medium map, that being Midnight Issue, how many gems it gives out when you complete the hidden wave on that. As far as I'm aware, nobody has actually beaten the hidden wave on Midnight Issue to check how much gems you get. Do bear in mind that it's increased by 25 from very easy all the way to insane. So if the developers were to add the medium difficulty to Tower Defense Simulator, would it be normal, which I believe is 100 gems, or would it be something completely different? Would it be in between the easy and the normal amount of gems that you get? The next thing I want to talk about is tower cooldowns. So there's been some issues with understanding how the tower cooldown works, because if you were to place down a tower and then not interact with the tower whatsoever, and then you were to upgrade it to the level where it gains an ability, as you can see here, it suggests that you need to wait 4 seconds before you need to actually activate it, whereas the update log suggests that you need to wait 10 seconds. Now, it's actually the case where you do need to wait 10 seconds for the tower after it's placed down. However, it's not when the ability is first triggered. So if you were to place down the DJ booth immediately, well, I need to sell this DJ booth because I haven't disabled tower limits here. But if I were to get the DJ booth now and then immediately upgrade it to the level required for the ability, that being level 3, you would see that actually I have 8 seconds left on the clock to activate the ability, but previously it showed 4 seconds. It is because the timer, the initial cooldown timer, starts from when you first place down the tower, that being 10 seconds for the DJ booth, meaning that you cannot activate the ability until 10 seconds after you place down a new DJ booth. This means that if you were to place down a DJ booth at, say, level 0 and then wait for about a minute afterwards, like you would in like normal gameplay up until the point where you would require the DJ booth ability at the very start of the game, it means that you're not affected by this whatsoever. So if I've waited, I don't know, a certain amount of time and then upgraded it, the DJ booth ability is almost ready for me to activate. So for most players that aren't macroing the DJ booth, it's going to be fine. The only reason why you want to macro the DJ booth is, I think, for the purple track, so that if you were to trigger it, this would push back some enemies. Now, obviously, the easiest solution to this is to have multiple DJ booths to trigger the ability to push back. And that, in fact, that's what you could do in night 1 of the recent Null and Void event to push back the Null Warden, so that your cowboys could actually gain a lot of money from that Null Warden, because let's not forget, it is a lead enemy. So what people would do was they would push the Null Warden back with 2 DJ booths. This is with 2 players, by the way. And then they would farm the heck out of that Null Warden and then place down their high amounts of like DPS towers, such as the Ranger, to actually kill the Null Commander with the Death modifier. That was a very easy way of getting the Death Touched achievement. That is the same for the Medic, so after you place it down, and then you were to wait a minute before upgrading it to the Ubercharge ability level, which I believe is level 4, then there would be no cooldown actually to use the ability. But if you were to place down the Medic and upgrade it to level 4 immediately, there would be a 15-second cooldown timer. That is the same for the Mercenary Base and for its airdrop ability, which is activated at level 5. If you were to place down a Mercenary Base and then wait 10 minutes until you upgraded it to level 5, there would be no initial cooldown timer of 15 seconds. That initial cooldown timer is only added for towers after you immediately place down a tower. Now, it is only for these 3 towers where this change actually applies. It doesn't apply to any other tower with an ability, most notably for the Commander. So, a tactic that some people would do is that if their towers, all of their towers, were to be stunned by, say, the Void Reaver, they would sell their Commander and then replace it and then activate the ability, because that would be a faster way of actually triggering the Call of Arms ability rather than waiting for their commanders to get unstunned. Additionally, in the update log, the developers mention the not A or invalid damage values causing NAN of errors in contracts. Now, actually, this relates to 2 enemies in the Null and Void event applying damage debuffs. So, if you were to apply the damage debuff to a tower with, let's say, 1 damage, and it would decrease it down to like 0 damage, this means that that tower effectively would normally deal 0 damage. However, it would normally be rounded up to 1 damage. However, actually, in Tower Defense Simulator, if you did that to the Shotgunner tower, it would actually deal not a number damage, because for some reason I think it was dividing by 0 or something like that. The only time I've ever seen it causing not a number value in Tower Defense Simulator is when you divide by 0. So I think there was something iffy with the Shotgunner. You could also, interestingly enough, do it with the Gatling gun, but you'd have to modify the Gatling gun's damage down to a very low number, I would assume to 1 damage in sandbox mode. Now, if these towers were affected by these enemies which were dealing not a number value, it would actually cause enemies to be dealt not a number damage. This would make the enemy impossible to kill, and everything that would hit, or anything that the Shotgunner or the Gatling gun, when it's modified with sandbox values, it would affect everything with that, and it would receive not a number total damage. And in fact, interestingly enough, you can actually still get this glitch. This glitch still occurs in Tower Defense Simulator, as you can see here. This actor has not a number value out of 8,000, so I think this actually kinda might kill you if this happens in real life. However, given the fact that the Null and Void event is now ended, I don't think there is an enemy which can cause, well, there is not an enemy that can cause a Shotgunner's damage to decrease below 0 or 1. However, what the developers have fixed is that if this Shotgunner would deal not a number value to your like enemies, for example, it would actually lock you out from achievements. So for example here, it would show up as not a number value, which means that you would not be able to progress in your quests. So that is what the developers have fixed. It no longer messes up your achievements, and it no longer messes up your quests if you ever encounter this not a number treatment. It's not fixed the towers in Tower Defense Simulator ever receiving not a number value for their damage, but it now fixed it so that it no longer causes issues, permanent issues might I add, for quests and for your achievements. Oh, interestingly enough, I also just realised that the developers have added the quests the achievements that you did during the Halloween event, the recent Halloween event, the Null and Void event, to the bottom of the list if you achieved it. So, for example, as you can see, Death Touch appears here, and if you go into your items and you were to go to Death Touch, you would be able to actually equip this if you so wished. Interestingly, it still shows up with Breached, which you could get by triumphing on Night 1 hard mode. It says that you can equip it, but if I'm right, it doesn't appear as a title that you can actually equip. The only things that you can equip are Against the Odds, Death Touch, and Evil Within, which, interestingly enough, Death Touch says that it can be unlocked from the Evil Within achievement, despite the fact that the Evil Within achievement is something completely different to Death Touched.